Good evening, welcome to the Goffstown Planning Board. This is our first of two meetings in the month of October. We begin with our introductions as normal. We'll start with Joanne.
Joanne Duffy, Planning and Economic Development Director.
Scott Ozana, Town Engineer.
Carlos Adams, Select Board Representative.
Philip Devanza.
Gail LeBrecq, alternate and recording secretary.
Tim Redmond.
Kimberly Peace.
Brian Mazer.
Colleen Mayu.
Thank you everyone for attending tonight. We will review the red line we'll do the approval of correction of the September 28th meeting, last month's minutes.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Phil.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Yep,
Abstentions?
I abstain.
2 abstains. And I was affirmative. I didn't say it, but I was.
Who abstained besides?
Kimberly and Brian.
I did.
Motion passes. David's here. Dave, we did the introductions. Could you add your name, please?
David Pierce,
Thank you.
alternate member.
And
Thank you.
Barbara is not here as of now, David, so you will vote on matters until Barbara arrives. Okay, next thing, item number 2 is the review of the red line proposed changes to the planning board procedures. We'll hold that to the end of the meeting. And copy of the red line for the CIP handbook, we'll hold that to the end of the meeting. And Joanne, could you give us number 4, copy of the revised schedule?
Yes, that was included in your packet, the revised schedule before going forward for the rest of the year. In November, excuse me, in November, we have a workshop meeting on November 9th, and that is for the proposed zoning changes. And then we have a regular meeting on November 16th, so that's only one regular meeting in the month of November due to the Thanksgiving holiday. And then December schedule is another hearing, excuse me, not another hearing, the first hearing for zoning amendments on December 7th. And then December 14th, we have a regular meeting.
Any questions for staff on these dates as proposed? Okay, thank you very much, Joanne. We'll go on to old business as our first action of the evening. Did I see it? Am I correct, Joanne? Is that where we're going?
Yes.
Okay, so map 10, lot 8.1. It's a subdivision review hearing for a proposed 2-lot subdivision. Jonathan and Judith Richardson, agricultural. Could you please run the board through it, Joanne?
Okay,
This is
so
new business, isn't it?
it should be really new business.
Yeah.
It hasn't been here yet, but
Excuse me?
it really should be new business.
This should be a new
Since
business
this is-
item?
Since this is the first time he's coming
All
here.
right, so everybody can make a note on your agenda to make that a new business. And then is the second one old business or new business?
That one's new too, right? We haven't seen.
Yeah, that is new.
Okay, so we have both of them are new
So we
business.
don't have any old.
Okay. So we can move on to your presentation, Joanne.
Okay, so we have an application submitted by Mike Dahlberg of TF Moran for a 2-lot subdivision on Tenney Road. And let me just get my notes here. And they're looking to divide, excuse me, 15.082 acres into 2 lots. One lot would consist of 12,292 acres, and the other one would be 2
Wait a
points.
minute. Not 12,000 acres.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We wouldn't have to say-
12.292 acres, and
Okay.
the other would be 2.790 acres. They're both located in the agricultural district where the minimum requirement is 2 acres. As you'll see on the plan, this is kind of like almost like a flag lot Mike had gone to the zoning board for relief of the frontage requirement. The requirement is 200 feet, and it looks like he has 101.80 feet. So he's basically using that area for the driveway. There is a wetland crossing over an existing wet area in order to get to the back of the property where the buildable area can be found. There's one issue with this. There is a requirement for even 2-lot subdivisions to submit a drainage study, and a drainage study was not submitted with the packet. Scott reviewed the plans and advised the applicant that he wants a drainage study submitted as required. So the applicant submitted, the day that I was mailing the packets out, the applicant submitted a waiver for the drainage study. So I'm not 100% sure whether the board would find this complete, since it was not submitted in the packet. But since he's asking for a waiver, I'm not sure where you want to go with this. Scott can elaborate on his reasonings.
Do you want me to do that now?
Please, Scott.
I mean, the main purpose of the request for the drainage study is because once we approve a plan and they want to build on it, there's no mechanism to require a drainage study. And they're proposing an over 300-foot driveway. I might even be close to 400 feet. So this is a lot of added impervious to an area that is currently all wooded. There's a ditch that gets added to alongside the driveway that directs into the wetland.
Which way does the driveway slope on this project, Scott?
I think it's a sag. So you've kind of got two sags. You've got a small one at the entrance, and then a second larger one, and then it goes up about a little more than 5% the rest of the way. So about half of it's a 5% slope up. The low point, I guess it's not the complete low point, but the low point of that sag is right at the wetland.
So does the driveway shed a lot of water into the town right of way?
The driveway does not shed much water at all into the town right of way. It sheds it into that wetland that you see at the mid, if you're looking at sheet
2?
Sheet 3 of 3 shows the driveway. So there's a wetland right there, and it kind of meanders down the hill and ultimately ends up going through a cross culvert under what's that, Snook? What's Snook over there? Yeah. So technically it's not shedding it directly there, but ultimately it finds its way under the town's roadway.
Okay. And your reasons for requesting a drainage study were?
It's one of the things we do for subdivisions, and I thought that due to the change of the site, it'll produce excess runoff compared to what's there today, and we just want to make sure that that excess runoff's mitigated and pre and post from there.
Thank you. Any board members have questions for staff? You can- Phil?
I believe we had a situation similar to this, but it was on the opposite side of the property, to the left side, into a wetland, a large wetland, and we required some specialized draining to that side of the driveway. I don't recall what the wetland was.
Are you talking about the recent one at the end of the?
It's fairly recent, maybe
Yeah,
6 months ago or so. It was
I
just,
don't
it was the
even think it was
reverse
that
of
long.
this. It was, in other
Are you
words.
talking about the one at the end of Tenny, or just a separate
No, a
subdivision?
different, what
Okay.
my point was that we had a similar situation,
Mhm.
and we addressed it in a certain way, and I was just wondering if this was similar to what we,
I thought with that one, we super elevated the driveway, so it all went.
right, we did something
one
to
direction.
that side. It was the opposite reverse of this.
Well, it doesn't matter which way.
No, I
it would
understand, I was
go.
just,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was just saying that to,
I don't recall which one we're talking
Okay.
about.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
no problem.
So Joanne is asking the board to decide if, based on the fact that they got the waiver for the drainage study, the day you were mailing them out, Joanne, is that what you're saying?
The day I mailed out the packets.
Now, what would have we needed to have included in our packet if a waiver for the drainage study was included? Just a statement?
So either when someone submits their application, they either provide us with the actual drainage study, which we then mail to you, or the waiver form itself. Where I'm saying is the waiver, so we didn't get the study, we got the waiver form, but it came in, like the deadline for submission was 9/28, and the day I mailed these was 10/6. So there was a large gap of not having anything.
Do you think that that would have a substantial impact on the presentation tonight? Because if the waiver's requested, even if we didn't have forewarned of it, it still would have shown up tonight.
And if that's what the board decides, that's fine. I'm just trying to drum it into people's heads that we're not accepting anything after the deadline.
Okay.
And people keep coming in with little dribs and drabs of things, and that's when everything gets complicated, because we're trying to get these staff reports completed.
Well, I think that-
And we're getting handed all of this late information.
I'd like to have that as a discussion among our board members.
Yeah.
And get board members' opinion on that, and then we can institute a policy
In
at
the
a future date.
Yep.
But I think for purposes of the application tonight, I don't think it has a substantial adverse impact on tonight's application. I'll leave
Okay,
that up to
that's
board
fine.
members to concur or disagree. I'm not hearing anybody say anything, so I
Mr.
can...
Chair.
Bill?
Just one comment that I will make. Seeing what we have on the agenda, I agree that it's not gonna, any discussion that we have on it isn't gonna impede on anybody else's time, since this is what we have one with a request to continue, and we have some of our own business later on. So I think that's an important part. If we had a full agenda, it would be a different story.
Anybody else like to chime in,
Yeah, I'll
comments?
chime in, Tim. I agree. I
Okay.
think for tonight's application, I don't think it's that important. However, I think we do need to hold the line. There's a reason why we have deadlines. It's so that we get information in a timely manner, and folks like us aren't put behind the 8 ball of getting information way too late, not being able to fully consider it before we deliberate at our meetings. But that's in general.
Thank you, Colleen.
I concur with that. I think deadline, I do think setting a policy going forward. I agree, though, that for this evening, if we move ahead, but for clarification, this would be if we're accepting for completeness, because the waiver was submitted, so it's complete, because the waiver request was submitted, but that we will be discussing whether or not we want to grant the waiver. It's once the hearing's open. Okay.
Anyone else like to speak on the matter?
I would like to proceed with the application and consider the waiver.
Okay, so we're going to proceed with the application tonight, Joanne. So we need a motion from someone, staff recommendation number 2. We normally do the motion to find it complete, ready for review, no regional impact.
I make a motion that we find the application complete and ready for review and with no regional impact.
And
Second.
waivers for discussion purposes only.
And waiver for discussion purposes only.
Second.
Okay, there's been anybody want to discuss the motion? All those in favor of the finding the motion complete, ready to review, no regional impact, and waivers for discussion purposes only, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. So is there anything else staff would like to add before I invite the applicant to come forward?
No, I mean, we have lots of comments, but the applicant can certainly go forward.
Well, we can address comments after the presentation, or we can, however you want to do it.
That's fine.
Is there any letters that need to be read for the record that want to be entered into the record or anything?
No.
Okay. So at this time, I'd like to invite the applicant to come up and
Oh,
identify.
I'm sorry, I take that back. There is a letter from the applicant to me regarding the waiver and DPW's comments, and you all have a copy.
I had one somewhere. I'll find it.
It looks like this.
I'll find this one here someplace. I saw that.
TF
I
Maureen,
saw it in my
right on
file.
top.
Here it is at the bottom.
Thank you very much.
So what is the letter, Joanne?
So the letter is about whether or not the Conservation Commission wanted or recommended a drainage study, and the applicant is saying that the conservation was all set with everything, but Scott did view their meeting, and apparently they did say that they would like to see something in the future as far as the stormwater plan.
that
Why don't you go ahead?
Mr. Dahlberg presented to them and stated that I had requested that they complete a drainage study, and he said that he was going to ask this board if that could be done outside of this approval, but as maybe a condition for the future builder. And then he submitted, and then after he stated that to Concom, it seemed to me like maybe that was kind of why they were okay with his proposal. And then when his waiver request came in, it just said he wanted to waive it entirely, so I felt it was a little misleading. And that was the gist of my comment, and his response was, I think he basically said that he still wants to have it be incorporated as a condition or something for when it's built on in the
All right, well,
future.
we'll let Mike Dahlberg speak to that when he comes up and does his presentation. So we do have this letter in the record, everyone has a copy of it, and everyone's taking a look at it. Anything else from staff? Any more questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll ask Mike Dahlberg to come up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I think I'll just go right
Could
to
you go, just for the record, Mike, please?
Mike Dahlberg, land surveyor, prepare these plans.
Thank you, Mike.
I did submit the waiver. I didn't know, let me back up. When we started this project, I was not sure when we got the variance if that area, that low area was actually gonna go hydric or not. So we ended up having to go for a dredge and fill permit, which took 6 months. And then during that process, we had to design the driveway so we can get the grading down. And so we finally got our dredge and fill permit in the state subdivision approval. Submitted the plans to the staff. I didn't know that Scott was asking for a drainage study other than the drainage study that we did for the culvert, the crossing. So there's a difference in terms here of what, we did submit a drainage study that sized that culvert
To the
in the watershed.
To the state of New Hampshire?
Well, we submitted a copy of what we submitted to the state electronically to the town.
Okay.
But that's not what Scott wants, and I understand what he wants. But my clients don't know what they want to build, or if they want to build. They've got 5 kids, they've got grandkids, thinking about downsizing, and they're just not sure. And with the wetlands and the length of the driveway, I understand everything that Scott's saying. What I'm saying is, we don't have any definitive plans to build there right now. So a drainage study, in my mind, has the connotation of a big drainage report in drainage areas pre and post. But the fact is that the area that's going to be developed is small. It's very small. and the driveway is designed basically almost at grade for the first 300 or 400 feet, and then there's a slight cut going up to the plateau where it's going to be built. So my idea would be to grant the waiver for acceptance, and then I can work with Scott on what like an individual stormwater management plan for the upper section of the driveway and the house would look like. Because I think we can do gutters and drip edge drains and little swale level spreaders and address his concerns that way, but a full drainage study by a PE, I just don't think is necessary. I have a plan that I drew up today that addresses the fire department's concerns of the parking at the end of the 40-foot turnaround, and it would be a start-off point for me to work with Scott to come up with something that he's happy with, the board's happy with, and just get this thing moving forward. I'm really not asking for a waiver of what Scott's asking for, other than I think it's the term drainage study as opposed to stormwater management plan for the new house and the driveway.
So I don't see why the board could not do as you suggested. We can accept it for discussion purposes only at this time, but prior to any approval, we're trusting that you sound like you want to work something out with Scott, at which time you would withdraw your request for the waiver. Am I hearing that correct? Or not what I'm hearing?
Well, well, the term drainage study in the development regulations doesn't really say what, it doesn't define it. So it goes to the engineering. I don't think we need a drainage study. I think we need an individual stormwater management plan for the new house and the driveway. That's what I think we need, in lieu of a drainage study, which we're willing to do. So if you want to call that a drainage study, if I can work with Scott and we can work that out. But I did submit what I thought was a drainage study. That's not what Scott wanted. That's fine. And you know, that's where we're at. It's a straight up 2-lot subdivision. We received our variance. We had to re-argue the variance because the time frame lapsed, because I got COVID, was on vacation in North Carolina in June, and by the time I was able to physically get back into the groove, I forgot about the time frame. We missed it by 2 weeks to submit to the planning board. So we re-argued the variance last week, and here we are.
So I'm going to hold off on you for a second. Mike, Scott, does this sound like something that you would be willing to discuss with the applicant to move forward?
I mean, I think we could do something. We previously on the Tibbetts Hill, we did recently. I believe Sanford was the engineer and surveyor on it. They did a real bare bones stormwater plan for us. That, you know, they used HydroCAD. They had a small pond at the end of the driveway. I believe it was a much shorter driveway, if I remember correctly. I definitely don't want to see, you know, a binder this thick with,
Right.
You know, all the upfront stuff that engineers just copy and paste and change the town name, and I don't need to read all of that. I just want to know that we're not increasing runoff downstream. We've had a handful of these 2-lot subdivisions. I can think of one, I believe it was like a half-acre lot that subdivided into 2 quarter-acre lots that we made them do a whole drainage study on. So it's not like we're trying to strong-arm you to do something that we're not making everyone do.
No, I understand. For me, in our daily work at TF Moran, when I hear drainage study, I'm thinking, you know, this encyclopedia report.
This was
But it-
a HydroCAD output with the drainage areas. I mean, it's a small site, like you said, so it's not a, I know it's not, you know, it's not like extremely easy, but it's not the heaviest lift, I don't think.
Well, I'd like to get the board's opinion on moving forward. I think that if the town engineer and the applicant can work together on some sort of drainage, scaled back drainage type of a study, or whatever the term was, that we could move forward tonight, hear a presentation, we can continue this meeting to a future date, at which time you would tell us that it was satisfactory, it was unsatisfactory, before any decisions are made on the final district. Now, if anyone else has an opinion they'd like to add, that's sort of where I thought we could be going. Kimberly?
So then we wouldn't be accepting the waiver, because I do feel like, I understand Mike's points, but I also think asking you to, it's just like Joanne said, we've got all these little details that come in separate from the application process, and the drainage study is part of the application process, and to have Scott later go back and think about or have to chase down an individual stormwater plan when this eventually gets developed, like, it's just not, it's just one more thing that our town staff has to keep track of. Whereas I think we could review all of this for acceptance, not agree with the waiver, and then say, as you said, you know, let's continue it, let's have you come in, the two of you agree on what a drainage study means, but I don't think that approving this with a waiver of the drainage study is appropriate, because then it's up to Scott to have to chase that down eventually. And I don't think that's fair to our process.
And approving the waiver is a lifetime pass for the drainage study.
Right,
I
right,
don't want to do that either.
right.
Well, if you approve it for acceptance only, we can start the clock,
Right.
like what you did, right?
That's what we
You've
did,
done that.
yes.
So the clock is started,
And
the onus is on us to
Come up
get
with
back
an
to
agreement.
Scott, right?
Yes.
Which we will, I mean, this is what we do every day.
But we're not going to act on the waiver tonight. We will.
Yep, that's fine.
And at some point, if you and Scott come up with an agreement that you're both amenable, you can withdraw the request for the waiver at that point.
No, I just wanted to get the clock rolling and, I'll go
Anybody else,
sit-
Phil?
I'll go sit down.
One of the other things that we had concerns in the past when we did large lots, especially some lots that were flag lots, and the only thing that was being built at the time was considered, when it came through here, that they were going to be putting a house on, but eventually a barn might go up there, and once you have the approval process, if you don't have any type of study on drainage, and I'm using that word loosely again, drainage, a person can go up there and put a giant barn up there, clear down so many trees and everything, and when they go, they have to get the permit. It's a permitted use. They can build a barn up there. They have the approval. We can't require it at that point. The building department can't say, yeah, we'll give you the permit for this large barn, but you got to do a drainage study. So I think in Mike's letter here, where it says, we would most likely be asking that an individual stormwater plan be prepared at the time of construction in lieu of the drainage study. I mean, I don't think that, again, we're talking about, the semantics of a drainage study or a stormwater plan. I don't think the building department has the ability to require, when they come in for construction and get the permit, to
No,
require that.
I don't agree with
So,
the
so
after the fact.
that's, I mean, we've had to deal with this in the past.
I think that I'd be comfortable with Scott maybe working with the applicant over the next couple of weeks to, I know that the regulations list 5,000 items that are normally in a drainage study, so it is in the regulations, it's clear what we expect of a drainage study, but for this site, maybe we're not waiving the drainage study, but, 3/4 of that is not necessary, and it really boils down to, that 700-foot driveway, what the area that's being changed, and if the property owner isn't sure what their, house layout is gonna look like, it's just a conceptual, it's at least a footprint, and, this is the difference in the runoff coefficients, and try to just at least give us something so that, I think part of what our job is also making sure there's not gonna be an undue impact on the neighbors, the abutting properties. So we wanna make sure that there's no, post-development increase to those abutters, that then they come back to us asking why we approved something. If we at least, there's been a look at that. So I think, working with you to, what is needed, so you don't get the 6-inch or 4-inch binder full of calcs. But
Yeah.
Just
And
one
that's-
other comment.
That's what we did on Tibbetts, is they fit a driveway where one could fit well, and they said, here is the size a house could be on this lot. Say the house is a little bigger, and it's probably not going to
Yeah.
really, flip it at that point. Sorry, Phil.
No, that's fine. But in Mike's defense, this is a small lot. So when I'm talking about the larger flat lot, we sometimes have somebody come in with 20 acres, 25, 30 acres, they have a flag lot, and they're keeping a 5-acre lot up front, and they got a 25-acre lot up in the back. So now you give them an approval, and all they say is they're building a house. So now they go with building an apartment, they're gonna build this giant barn up there and clear everything up there. It's a completely different story. This is 2.2 3/4 acres, so we're not talking about a 20-acre lot that can have 10 acres clear cut.
But I think the point is, the regulations require it.
Right.
And I agree, I think that Scott and Mike can work together to develop some form of report that meets the spirit and intent of a drainage analysis study, which is to demonstrate that post-development flows will not exceed pre-development flows, both in volume and direction of flow, so as to negatively impact other property owners. And I think they can demonstrate that with a scaled-back version of.
Okay, this horse is dead,
Yeah. I have a question of a different matter.
please.
So this is really more for the board, and I should know this, I guess, but I feel like I don't. We really don't love these flag lots, but they got a zoning variance for the lack of frontage. So we can't really do anything about the fact that it's a flag lot, right?
Well, actually, we could deny the lot altogether, right, Joanne?
Well, you could decide that it wasn't the best lot for what
I'm just
what
saying,
it
just
is that
because
they're
zoning
doing.
gave a variance does not mean that the planning board has to approve the lot.
No, it doesn't necessarily tie your hands, although, depending on how it would go forward, you may be faced with a lawsuit.
Yes.
Well, the lawsuit's a lawsuit, but the standard that I'm saying, and it probably goes to your question, is just because zoning granted a variance, the planning board is not obligated to accept that and make that lot a viable lot. We have our own standards.
That's true.
So that's, I don't know that's ever happened or not, but.
The only thing the variance does, it takes the frontage impediment for the subdivision away. Everything else in your development regs applies. That's all.
Anybody else? Okay, so Mike, could you continue with your application presentation?
I've gone through the comments. I did space the buildable rectangle. It's in the computer now, it's fine. I have addressed the fire department's concern, they're number 6. That's on the plan I prepared today. And we do meet their minimum clear width of 12 feet. It's actually, I think we have 16 feet.
Let's back up. What are you talking about, Mike? Is it an FPA driveway, is that what you're talking about?
We meet the NFPA standards.
Which is what, are you saying it is?
I think we have a 12-foot hard pack with 2-foot shoulders.
It's a 16-foot all-weather surface and a 20-foot wide clearing. That's NFPA standard, as I know.
That is,
Yeah, no, it's, by the time we're done with the grading and stuff, it'll be that wide.
It is,
Yeah, the fire comment seems incorrect with this minimum clear width of 12 feet.
that's not correct. That's not NFPA standard, I can tell that. Oh, for each lane of travel.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're talking about 24 feet. If it's what are they talking about, 2 lanes in the driveway?
Is this the wrong?
East Lane Trail.
I'm not quite sure of that comment, but the one that they underlined, I think was the one that they really wanted us to speak to, was the 40-foot hammerhead at the end is not to be used as parking for the house, which we can clearly demonstrate that it's not.
Until the guy parks his camper in there.
I can't do anything about
I
that.
know you can't, but we can.
But I can demonstrate clearly the idea and the concept that it works.
It's almost foolish. All right. Anything else you'd like to talk about, Mike?
No, I think we've done enough for
Does
now.
anybody have we've only really talked about your waiver, that's all we've really talked about. Anybody have questions for the applicant? Unless anybody, open up.
So other than the drainage study, Joanne or Scott, do we feel like there are outstanding other comments that,
All my other comments were pretty basic, some pretty much draw and clean up.
how, has there been discussion, or how would you address the idea that you might need vegetation clearing easement for the driveway? Fire department
So
comment
there's
before.
the one thing that was not shown on this plan that was in the computer was there's a 10-foot roadway maintenance, and I forgot how it was worded, on the property side of the road for just such things. And I have done site distance per Scott's comments, which we can make, and I believe it can be accomplished by just clearing the brushes there. Now, the town did come out and repair the road and put in curbing and drainage, and they went right up to the lot line and actually ripped the front corners of the property out on both access points. But there is a 10-foot, and I'll get a copy of the plan and everything to the town. But there's a 10-foot roadway maintenance easement.
Beyond the edge of the pavement, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah,
And what was the question regarding it?
It is at least 13-foot 6-inch nominal vertical clearance shall be provided and maintained over the full width of the roadway.
Yeah, I think that's along the driveway.
That's what I was assuming
So-
that to be.
But
yes.
I mean, I guess that kind of goes to, is the driveway supposed to be?
Well, that's overhanging
Yeah.
limbs.
Right.
Overhanging, so that if, I guess, is it two 12-foot lanes, is it a 16-foot lane? Because it's like a 13-foot clear space over
Typically
that, right?
16, if they're going to pave it, it's 16 feet paved, and then you do 2-foot gravel shoulders to give you the,
No, it's
no,
12
I'm
foot of
sorry,
pavement.
12-foot, 2-foot shoulders.
Right.
Yeah, it's the 20-foot clear, not, yeah.
I
So it's
mean-
total of 16 feet of
All other
hard durable
surface.
surface.
Based on the driveway layout, I think that the fire department was trying to say that, the abutters, north and south, if there's vegetation that's overhanging the driveway, I don't see that would be,
Well, butters north and south, I don't think that weighs in because that's on the edge of the town road.
no, so,
I think along the just here and here, they're saying
Yeah.
you need to make sure that you can clear this vegetation that this
And that
driveway is clear.
fully within their own property?
Right, or else you would
Yes.
need easements to
it looks like,
well, the way it works is that from the property line, which is an imaginary line,
yeah.
up to heaven,
yeah.
you can clear.
Got it.
You can't hurt the trunk of the tree on the neighbors, but you can clear the branches.
Right.
Yeah, I think you're,
So, but Mr. Richardson is a land clearing expert, so I think he'll be able to take care of that.
Bill?
I find it interesting on the fire department comment number 5, it's also a condition, suggested condition for approval is number 15, which reads, exercise caution with the development of grade transitions in the driveway. The angle of approach and the angle of departure shall not exceed 8 degrees at any point on the roadway or its intersection with another roadway or fire lane.
You know what that's about? That's about the tailboard of the ladder truck dragging.
Yep, so we don't have that situation
Yeah, it
here.
doesn't appear that way.
Where the driveway hits Tenney Road, it's about 2.5% grade. And then the first 300 feet of road is under 3%. And then we have a really smooth transition to the 5% grade that's only for about 100 feet, and it's got a vertical curve in and a vertical curve out.
I think that might just be part of a boilerplate.
Yeah,
It's a
we
condition
don't
they
have that
include in
situation.
all applications.
Yeah.
I understand that, I just wish we had that boilerplate condition on another application that we approved.
Well, is it a problem on the another application? No, it was
Well,
addressed.
that's another story.
Yeah, well, I don't want to dig
No,
into the past.
no.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for the applicant?
It's in our driveway permit anyway, so it shouldn't have been constructed that way, if that 8% algebraic difference. So-
I don't think we should be discussing it. This is-
No, we're not talking about other applications at the time.
We can meet that standard. It's a pretty straightforward driveway design.
All right, Mike, you can stay where you are just temporarily. I'm going to open the public hearing at this time. Anybody who's here to speak on this matter, now's the time to step up and speak to the matter. 7:40. Seeing no one here to speak, I'll close the public hearing for this evening. Board discussion. We are going to, sounds to me like we're going to move this to a date certain. Hopefully, the town engineer and the applicant will come together on a plan that addresses the, what are the words? Stormwater management plan, stormwater plan, and that would eliminate the request for a waiver for the drainage study. We can accept that in lieu of the drainage study as a board, even if the development regulations require it. Please, Kimberly.
So do we always put wetland setback placards up, or do we, or do we, so that the house doesn't end up on that? And I see from the topo that it's not likely that they're going to put the house within that area, but we have on other plans. Or maybe just a note, even on the plan, that, you know, house development may not occur within the wetland setback. I don't know. I forget what we do typically.
We typically require those placards if the Conservation Commission requests it,
Oh, if the Conservation Commission requests it, okay. Okay.
which they have not done.
Well, I guess that I'd feel comfortable with a note on the plan, at least saying house development shall not occur within the 100-foot wetland setback. Which they're not supposed to do anyway, but it's always good to have it there.
Yeah, that's fine.
Question for Scott. Scott, the wetlands crossing that's going to be proposed, are there going to be inspections required on that wetlands crossing? Typically, normally, not usually, what's the story?
Typically, not.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yeah. We,
Because I'd like to, I want to get out of town staff going on private property and making inspections. So I think if we're going to do a condition of approval eventually on this application, we require that the engineer of record provide documentation, stamped documentation that the wetlands crossing was installed as per plans, per DES plans.
So the thing about the culvert is that it's embedded.
Please explain to everyone.
We dropped, we increased the size of the culvert and we dropped it down into the ground, so just laying on top. So we maintain that hydraulic connection between each side of the driveway. So little critters or whatever in the flow that occurs today will be maintained, not blocked up, backed up. And our approach is going to be to stake that out and grade it.
Okay.
Because it's, you know, the condition of the wetlands permit is pretty specific.
Well, just be prepared for a condition that requires the PE, the licensed PE that designed it to,
The licensed PE did not design it.
okay, a wetland scientist?
Wetland scientist,
Will provide us
in
with-
conjunction with
It's
me,
not required for a tier 1 crossing.
no. But it'll be, we can give you a certified as-built.
That's what we need for the record. David?
So the 24-inch culvert being 6 inches low, over time, it becomes filled with debris or soil, so it's sort of like a flat surface on the
Yep.
sides. Thank you for.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah,
You
the
don't have to-
intent is to mimic a surface that replicates a natural stream bottom to facilitate aquatic organism passage. So
You don't have to
they don't
do-
come to it and say, wait a minute, this isn't a stream, I'm stopping here.
That doesn't have to happen pre-acceptance, it happens post when the normal silt fills it in? Or do they have to put the dirt in the pipe ahead of time?
Oh, they have to design it.
Yeah, they have to.
They have to put the dirt in the
Yeah,
pipe when they install
they
it?
do.
Still.
Okay. Good. I just
Yeah,
wanted to
there's a whole,
understand
there's a
that.
whole detail. There's
Oh,
there's a
right.
whole, there's a whole separate set
Okay.
of plans.
Ivan, we'll deal with it, thank you. All right, anybody else have anything to add, or are we gonna look for a date certain for this, Joanne?
So we have the next meeting, which is the 23rd, I'm sorry, not the 23rd, the 26th. Or we have the 16th of November.
Let's ask the applicant and Scott what their thoughts are on meeting deadlines.
I would prefer the 16th. I don't know what Scott's schedule is like. I'm sure he's busy.
16th of November, is that what we said?
Yeah.
It's about a month. How soon before that date could you get it to me?
Realistically, it's probably a couple of weeks out. We're pretty backed up.
So I would have it a week and a half in advance,
Yeah.
about.
So time to review and time to put into the packet, those are the two
Well, time
deadlines.
to put into the packet I'd want to see it 2 weeks in advance because we send the packet out exactly a week ahead. And I
So-
can't necessarily, review it the second I receive it, so.
So who's got the calendar? Mike, you have a calendar yet?
I do not have
I
a
have
So
calendar.
who can tell me when 2 weeks from today is?
The 30th.
And 2 weeks
No,
from,
I'm back in November. 26th. The 26th, which is our next meeting.
and then 2 weeks from the 26th is,
The 9th, which is a workshop meeting.
and then the next meeting is?
The next meeting is the week after, the
So
16th.
technically, there's 3 weeks from our next meeting, which is 2 weeks, so there's a total of almost 5 weeks. So if you two can accomplish this in 5 weeks, we can accept November 16th, I think. But that's between you two to decide, not
I
us.
think November 16th, Scott, you would need to get something by November 2nd. That would be a week before, if packets then go out the 9th and the meeting's on the 16th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you think you can meet that schedule, Mike, we'll schedule for the
So
16th.
that's
If
3
not,
weeks.
we'll put it out, because I really don't want to do a continuation if
Yeah,
we're
I
not going to
know.
be ready.
I'm actually at a conference in Worcester, late October into early November,
So do you want to go
That
out to the
week.
next meeting, Scott, Mike?
which is going to be what, early December?
Which would
November
be,
No, the next meeting
This-
in November would be
14th.
Thanksgiving.
wait, let me look at that list that Patty put together. I think it's the 14th.
I'm just looking at upcoming meetings on
The
page 2
Yeah,
of
it's
our
the
packet.
14th.
So it's almost a whole month after the
So December
November
14th.
meeting because of the holiday.
If your clients aren't planning on building on it right away, what's the harm in letting it?
No, I
know?
agree, and,
That gives everybody enough time to do everything.
yeah, let's do December 14th.
Okay, so you're,
And everything will need to be done if the clock hasn't been waived.
well,
I think
I'm
you
getting
should
to
waive
that.
the clock tonight.
I was gonna
agreed
get,
to
We-
that.
we would
I was
agree to
getting
waive
to
the
asking
clock.
Mike to waive it. So do you agree to waive the 65 day
Yes.
clock, Mike? Okay. So applicant agrees to waive the 65 day.
Yeah, that's not a problem.
The truck's out, might not be.
Okay.
I'll make a motion, Tim, if you're ready.
So motion to continue, Collis?
Yeah, motion to continue the application to December 14, 2023.
Well,
I'll second that.
anybody have any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Scott, I'll be in touch.
Yep,
Thank
thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. So we have another new business application here, map 20, lot 16. Is this going to be heard
So-
tonight?
No, so map 20, lot 16, I met with the engineer, I think it was yesterday. And there were many items that were outstanding and needed to be addressed, so he has agreed to continue the application until,
God bless you. So when?
I'm thinking, what was the date? I think it's,
November 16th.
I think it's the 16th of November.
Yeah, November
but Let me
16th,
just
yeah.
double check.
It is, it's in the letter.
Okay, the 16th,
November 16th?
yes.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
So on our sheet 2 of our packet, November 16th, we gotta write that in now.
Yes,
And that's what we call on that one?
Dearborn
Dearborn Village?
Village.
Now, for all of us who've been around a long time, is this the property alongside the Century 21 down on 114A? Is that the property?
The old Century 21.
Yeah.
Well, I still call it Century.
Yeah,
The yellow
yeah, it
building.
says Atlantic.
It's actually become
Is it- yeah.
Heichel Village after that for a while.
Yeah.
No offense, John. Okay, so, do we have to make a motion, have a motion on that, Joanne? Or is that,
Typically you do, yeah.
okay, so I'm looking for a motion to continue that application.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion to continue. Bill? Oh, Kimberly, did you make the nomination?
I did.
What date is this going to?
11/16 of
Yeah.
23. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Okay, other business, we have a man in the back, request for recommendations of select board. Could you come on up to the table, please? Joanne, we talked about this at a meeting last week. Last meeting, I shouldn't say last week, at our last meeting. Some members were not here. So Joanne, could you please, for the members that weren't here, just give them a very brief update about why we did not act on this? This is a request to the selectmen for permission, a recommendation to build on a Class 6 road.
So in your packet is a few pages stapled together. It's a memo
Where is it, Joanne?
Right here.
in your packet. It has a map on the back of it, it's a colored map.
Thank you.
So Jonathan is here to get the board's recommendation from the planning board, which needs to go to the Board of Selectmen, for building on a Class 6 road. Before someone can build on a Class 6 road, they need the select board's approval, but they need to also get the planning board's recommendation before they can do that. So he tried to do this at a previous meeting, but the planning board had some outstanding questions that they wanted answered. So what I've done in this memo is list what the questions were, basically answering those questions. So there's attachments that go along with this that you'll need to refer to.
I think you just start going through them, Joanne.
Sure. So the first one was that DPW had provided a list of recommended roadway improvements for Kennedy Hill coming in from the 114 end. And Scott recently updated that list and provided it to everyone, which basically addresses the fire codes and other items that would be needed. So Jonathan is now saying that he was never the one who wanted to come in from Mass Road. If you remember, we had someone here one night and he gave us a presentation of what he wanted to do, and then he was sent along to the select board, but he found it to be too expensive in the end, so he didn't go forward with it. So this is the first time Jonathan is here requesting this, and all along he has been requesting to come in from Longbrook Road, which is off of Addison. And so Scott provided him with an updated list as to what would be needed to come in from the Kennedy Hill Road end of Addison. So another question was, if he signs a liability agreement, does he still need to make those improvements? And the town attorney advised that the improvements should be included. They should be signed off. The town should do kind of an overview to make sure that they were done properly as far as what was asked for. and then it would be signed off by the town. The liability waiver should still be required and recorded, signed off and recorded, and,
Well, I'd like to talk about that before you go any farther, with the
Okay.
board.
sure.
It was brought up by a board member at the last meeting, that if we give an applicant directions from the town engineering department to do road construction to a standard, now we put ourselves in a position where if the fire truck can't get down there, waiver or not, we've told them what they need to do to build a road, and I'm afraid that the town puts themselves in a bad spot.
I asked that question because Scott is not telling them you need to build this to town roadway standards. He's just telling them, this is what you need to do to make it passable so that a fire truck or his truck can get down there. So it's not town roadway
So that goes
standards.
back and that deletes the whole waiver idea of a fire waiver then. Because if you're
No.
gonna build it to make it passable to a fire engine, now you can't require a waiver because the town directed you on how to get a fire truck down there.
But the thing with the Class 6 road, because the town doesn't maintain it,
Yeah.
he needs to keep it passable all winter long so that a fire truck could get through. So if he decides that, maybe he's sick that day and that we had a big snowstorm and he can't get out there and plow the road, and then all of a sudden there happens to be a fire at his house that day, we still have that waiver in hand. And that's what was recommended by
I think
the
it's
town's
muddy
attorney.
water.
I think Joanne, and maybe the attorney could confirm, I believe that the statute requires that recorded waiver of municipal liability, so no matter what.
It does,
So even if we tell them the improvements are just to be an
The
FPA
basic
standard, it's a
improvements.
basic, but the statute still, so I think, the town attorney can obviously advise, but I think that we're not putting the town at risk.
Well,
this.
I have a concern, all right? When it says the town attorney has advised that the recommended improvement should be, number one, completed, approved, and signed off by the town. So the town is approving and signing off on it.
By approving it, it's meant that Jonathan did what was said in the memo from Scott.
Okay, so now the fire
Built
truck
it
goes
to
down there,
that-
the
to
fire
that.
truck gets stuck. And now, everybody that's on the road that the fire truck couldn't get to, and they got fire damage, their house was burnt down, the town approved the work that we did. We did our job. The town was faulty in approving it. If there was a problem with the construction, the town should have told us. They signed off on the road. The fact that the truck got stuck on the road, that's a town's problem.
That's
Yeah.
why the waiver of municipal liability is recorded. They've waived.
That's why a lawsuit will say the town is responsible.
That's why we should say, you sign the waiver of liability and you fix it to whatever you want to do. And if you don't fix it right, the waiver of liability kicks in. I don't think we should be telling them how to build a road down to the house at all.
Well, then have an individual company, engineering department, do the inspections and have them sign off so the town's not the one that signed off.
I asked that question, and because I thought the same thing, like, well, how can you make someone do it to town standards and have it be approved and everything, and then still want a liability waiver? And I was told by legal that that's just how it is. The town is not held responsible.
Yeah,
Until we
right,
go to
until
court.
it goes to
Yeah,
court
until you go to
and the
court.
Supreme Court rules in favor of the,
Giving you
Against the
a
town.
legal opinion that I was
You can-
requested to get.
And sometimes we do not do what the legal opinion tells us. We have a case of that here at this board.
Well, I'm
and
not
it
sure
worked
that
out
this
for our
is your
advantage.
decision as far as the improvements. It actually comes under the select board.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna be against it myself. Okay, so
Okay.
let's move on to number 2 now that we worked on that one.
So that was number 2.
That was number
Oh,
two,
that was,
yeah.
let's move on to number 3 then. I thought we were on 1 still.
It was kind of 1 and 2.
Yeah, together.
Okay,
Okay, so what does, what does the state fire code require for access to this land? So now we have to go to Captain Connor's memo. At the top, it's titled Duluth, Kennedy Hill Road.
where, is it in this packet? Yes.
Yes, it's
I'm looking for it.
Has some notes on it.
Okay,
8 pages in.
well, that's Derek Horn. There we go, I got it finally. Go ahead.
Well, he just explains that typically the board will sign off on building permits on Class 6 roads, and then the property owner signs the waiver acknowledging that they may not receive emergency services. He says the property owner has discussed and represented this property as an agricultural site with possible, he says plans, but it's possible plans to sell products on a Christmas tree farm. The waiver of emergency services with the town becomes a moot point, as once the property is offering a service or product, since it is open to the public. And then he goes on to list what is needed. Means of access shall be provided to all buildings over 400 square feet in ground floor areas and to public occupancies with structural components. Any gate shall not be closer than 30 feet from an intersection and shall open in the direction of emergency vehicle travel unless other provisions are made. Roadways shall be constructed and maintained per NFPA 1141, Chapter 5. Roadways shall be constructed of hard, all-weather surface design to support all legal loads of jurisdiction, fire engines, and ambulances. Roadbed clearance shall be considered for emergency vehicle access. Roadways shall have a
We don't have
minimum.
to, we don't need a reading of the whole thing, we
Okay.
can stop there.
Well, that, if you read on, that's what they need for the fire. There's 2 pages.
Okay. Signage, dead end, blah, 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 okay.
So the 4th question was, will the public eventually have access to the Christmas tree farm? The applicant was unclear at this time whether he would proceed with a cut-your-own Christmas tree farm where the public would be allowed access to his property.
Okay, go on.
Number 5, the planning board also discussed access through Longbrook and the fact that traffic was prohibited down Kennedy Hill towards Addison. Currently, Mr. Delude accesses his property through Kennedy Hill where it meets up with Addison. When he exits, he uses the Class 6 section of Kennedy, turns left where it meets up with Longbrook, proceeds on to Longbrook to Addison. So if I could just explain that a little bit further. So we had, I don't remember the year, it was early 2000s, the planning board approved the Longbrook subdivision. And as a condition of approval, they did not want to make any changes on the lower half of Kennedy near the farm. That farm actually is on the National Registry of Historic Places. They wanted to preserve the area as is. So they were afraid that the people that were now living at the upper end of Longbrook would be taking Kennedy to leave versus going down Longbrook to Addison. So they decided at that time to have the applicant put up a gate and no left-hand turn. So if you're on Longbrook, you can't turn left onto.
There's no gate to the left turn, there's
Kennedy.
only a gate on the right side. for
No,
it.
no, I didn't say on the right, I said no left-hand turn
There's a sign,
sign.
but there's no
The
gate.
gate is on the right-hand side.
Right.
So it wasn't done right away. It took a while for everything to work out. It took a couple of years, I think, or more than a couple of years. In the meantime, somehow Mr. Lamontagne got involved. I don't know if he was building the houses, the
He
newer
built the whole
houses
subdivision.
up the road.
That I remember.
Which one?
I think Lamontagne Builders built Longbrook, if I'm not mistaken. And that's not an
Oh,
insinuation. right?
maybe. I don't remember.
I believe that was their project.
But, so, anyway, he came back at a future date to the planning board and asked if they would change those conditions, because it was made a condition of approval, those 2 items. And the planning board talked it over, and they reiterated that they were trying to preserve that area, and they didn't want the traffic, they didn't want to have to widen that roadway. And so they said, no, you have to go with
Condition
what's
stands.
there.
Right.
And so my concern when Jonathan came in is I was trying to explain that to him, that he would like to from his property, proceed down Kennedy and continue, even though it says do not enter. He would like to continue down to Addison versus having to go through the Longbrook neighborhood. And I think that's really something he needs to work out with the select board. But the way it stands now, the approval for Longbrook has those conditions included. And I want the selectmen.
But Joanne, the conditions of approval pertain to the Longbrook residents not using Addison Road. It does not,
Right.
it does not prohibit Addison Road residents from using Addison.
And I don't have
I
any
mean, Kennedy Hill.
problems whatsoever of, one person, family or whatever, using it, but there's more vacant lots up there, and people want to start possibly building now that they can gain access, and before you know it, you're gonna have more houses up there. And
Well-
all I'm trying to do is preserve that area where
Well-
the buildings are on the National Register.
We as a planning board can't decide who can build and can't build on approved properties. We can't do that. We can, so if people get permits to build on Kennedy Hill Road, we cannot stop them from using Kennedy Hill because of the Register of Historic Places
You
or
can
the
stop them
agricul-
because there's a sign there that says do not enter.
But that's only pertains to the residents from the other property.
No, the residents that are coming, and when they hit that sign, they cannot enter from that property. The other homes are on the other side of that sign, that do not enter sign.
Well, there's gonna be, that's something somebody.
And I really like to stress this to the select board, because that's a beautiful area, and if you start opening it up to more traffic on the lower end of Kennedy Hill,
Yeah, well,
then all you're doing is asking for, okay, someday we're going to have to widen this.
I
And it
think
would
that,
really be a shame.
Barbara?
I think the request for changing up there had to do with didn't the subdivision for the couple of lots
Yes.
off of Kennedy Hill happen after Longbrook?
Yes.
And that's when they came in and
Yes,
wanted to redo it?
and that's what I think it
Okay.
was.
Yes.
All right.
I
so-
just don't know if
Right, but
Lamontagne
so
built
that
them or
was,
not.
so that was the progression of that area where there's been a lot of effort to pursue it. I'm not sure I agree with the chair in regards to the planning board making decisions. I mean, I think the issue from a planning perspective to me is that there has been no planning on this Class 6 road. And to the extent we need to do something as a community, we haven't addressed it yet, and this application indicates that maybe something needs to be thought about. At one point, what I refer to the purple part, you can see the zoning there, the change in the zoning. There were districts proposed at various times to allow development from that end. But from a planning perspective, and I have to say, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, I was usually on the losing end of these Class 6 road arguments. I don't see how we are doing ourselves a planning favor by recommending this. Because the Board of Selectmen are looking for somebody to take the heat on this and to say it's okay. That's what happens with every Class 6 application. And, we're not going to get into the fact that I don't even understand why this went to the ZBA
That's what I brought up.
before it came here, when I wasn't here for that discussion. And, I mean, that has to be fixed, because this is a planning discussion. And I don't understand what happened over in the ZBA, that we ended up, and I understand, the applicant, but I am like, there is no planning for the use of this road for residential.
Right.
We've had requests before for Class 6 when they're just coming off the end of the Class 6, like it's a Class 5, and then it's a Class 6, and they want to just go one lot line in
Right.
to
It abuts the
build
5.
it, and it abuts it, and, we have done that in certain circumstances and not done it in some circumstances. This is a building in the middle of a Class 6 road that nobody wants to come in from Mass Road because of the grade and how that is. And coming in from Addison Road creates planning nightmare, because Addison, that's a 4-way stop that got put in there years ago at that road because of the traffic issues on that road, which is really a horrendous road to encourage more traffic on. And I understand the applicant is sitting here going, what are they talking about? I just want to build my house, and I get that. But if the Board of Selectmen is asking for a planning board recommendation for this, I can't support it, because
Well,
it needs to be planned.
if I can,
Please,
I agree with you, Barbara. I think this needs to be looked at through a planning lens. Not whether or not you get a fire truck up and down the road. That's one issue, but there's a whole host of other planning issues relative to land use and how it should be used and what's the appropriate use of it and what's going to be required and all sorts of issues that are going to need to be addressed that are planning board issues, for sure. So I agree with you on that, Barbara. Absolutely.
And, maybe I have too much history with or know about the area in regards to the Kennedy Hill Road portion of it that is going to be impacted at this. Because at some point, that condition was sort of put in and has worked just by virtue of the fact that Longbrook is usually headed down to 140, it hasn't created an issue, but,
Can I ask a question?
and I also would just point out that the notice for this would not have included Longbrook, I don't believe, would it have?
There is no notice.
So there's no notice for this. So,
There would be a lot of people in the crowd right now.
if there had been notice,
Well, yeah.
so.
Kimberly, do you want to go next?
Yeah, I just said, I don't remember procedurally, what does it take for the town to upgrade or to decide to take a Class 6 road and turn it into a Class 5 road? Looking at the size of those parcels and potential future development, when does that happen? Or how does that happen?
From my former position, we never did that, because it's not the responsibility of the town government and town funds to upgrade a Class 6 road for other people to use it. It's always been that person's obligation to upgrade the road to make it accessible. Then should the road be requested to be accepted by the town as a Class 5 road, they have to meet stringent standards, and that's when it becomes accepted as a Class 5 road. And that includes grades, drainage, everything involved.
Surface, yep.
And so one of the big kickers here then is, and I know that you have said, it could be a Christmas tree farm down the road, but right now you're just looking at it for residential use.
Well, that's not
But
what
the
I'm
fire
reading in the letter.
department said, if it's accessible for the public, then it needs to be built as a public access way.
Well, it's not up for the future, because his own letter states that he's already planted them all.
Right, I know, and I think that it sort
But
of
it
like
doesn't
reads
mean-
backwards.
but-
Right.
That's, yeah.
It doesn't mean that he would necessarily sell them as a cut your own. He could get rid of them other ways.
All right. Anybody else before I? Couple of things. One, in the letter that Jonathan has submitted from Jonathan to Joanne. There's a statement that says we have invested significant funds in our agricultural operation. It's imperative we rapidly move forward with our building plan as we're committed to expenses toward the following, and list expenses. Normally, you wouldn't put any of the expenses into your property until you after you had permission to do this thing, and not use this as a polite leverage to get permission. That's my opinion. Secondly, if we permit Mr. Delude to use Longbrook Road, and we restrict him from using Addison, Kennedy Hill to get to Addison, we're putting an undue burden on the residents of Longbrook
Absolutely.
with his own vehicle traffic, which he said he has some vehicles that he uses. I don't know if he has a landscape business or not, but the point is that I don't think it's fair for us to divert traffic through Longbrook's neighborhood for something that's on a different road because we don't want people to use Kennedy Hill to get to Addison. I don't care about all the Skinny Road or the National Register of Historic Places. It's a town road. And I'll stand firm that the town road should be used by the residents on that road, and we should never, ever send all that traffic down, especially if it becomes a Christmas tree farm.
Yep.
And you've got 80 or 90 people a weekend for the 2 or 3 weekends you cut trees, bombing that road. They have kids that live out there. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to vote for that. Barbara, go ahead and blow it.
I'm just gonna say, we've had projects, this board has had projects over the years, including years I haven't been on the board, where we approve all sorts of developments that throw all sorts of traffic through existing developments. So I don't know, this is an existing neighborhood with a through street. So, I mean, I appreciate what you're saying, and I was the one who commented on Longbrook not being noticed, but I don't think we can start saying we can't allow development because they're going to use a town road. Isn't it nice that everybody on Longbrook gets to have their own private dead-end street then?
Except that they were restricted from using Kennedy Hill.
For
So
a
that's-
reason, but there were reasons why.
If you look at where it says Templeton Farm, to the right to the left of the T, there's some tan buildings. The one right next to the T is the barn, and then across the street is the house. And those are the buildings on the historic I can't even talk, register.
Yeah.
And
And
you'll
they're
see how
right on the
close
road.
they are to the edge of that roadway. That's the reason why we said we don't want all of that additional traffic traveling down there. I'm not saying one family is going to make an impact. I'm only saying that there needs to be some sort of a plan for the future because there will be additional growth on Kennedy Hill.
Well, I mean, and I know that the roadway improvements and the NFPA requirements, we can't waive those, that's not us, that's for the fire department and then for the selectmen to decide if they're applying those. But if they're doing those improvements, it looks like right now, the plan would be that the improvements would be done from I guess, the gated area, the top of Templeton, or the top of Longbrook up to the property.
Right.
But no improvements done on that section that, you're concerned about.
Right.
I mean, is there even right of way, I guess, if you're trying to, from a planning perspective, not have them going through that subdivision on Longbrook, is there even room there to improve from Addison up to the end of Longbrook and to meet those NFPA requirements? Or are they needing to use Longbrook because there's no way to improve those without impacting the farm?
And the trees along
Yeah.
the
The trees and
there's
this,
old trees,
the scenic.
stone walls, like you do.
So you really, you
Yeah.
can't,
You really need to go up there.
you
and see
need,
it.
yeah, okay.
Okay. Now, Joanne, is it appropriate for us to let Mr. Duluth speak, or just?
Yeah,
we-
poor guy.
Wait a minute, or do we normally make a recommendation without taking input from people?
So typically, they are placed under correspondence, and I asked Patty to place this one under other business so that Mr. Duluth could speak, because I don't see the point in making a recommendation without the full story.
All right, I'm going to give you 5 minutes, Mr. Duluth.
Okay. I just want to, basically, I'll get quick and address some of the serious concerns, but for now, we've definitely tabled having any general public come to the site to do any cutting of any trees or anything like that. First of all, a lot of this has brought a light to the fact that there's probably no way to even get 2 lanes of traffic down there. On one side of the road, it's straight up and down ledge, probably taller than your truck, require a lot of blasting to get any wider than the requirements to get to that 16-foot. On the other side is the only creek that goes down through there. Basically dries up after the runoff from the snow, but it still is a runoff swale that's there. It's very small. It's a small, basically really long driveway. 1965, the town tried to come up from the other way. It was too steep. There's no way you're going to meet the 8% incline. So the traffic for fire trucks and whatnot, it's not going to happen through Mass Road without extensive expenses, which is, if that's the town's plan, then that would be up to them. It's not our intention at all. So as of now, the grade has worked down there. The gravel works for us. We didn't intend to do any asphalt or anything like that, but it seems that the standards are pretty much the same as far as the width and then clearing vegetation. To address the concerns with the traffic flow, so far it's been a non-issue. It's been about a year of it for myself. It's been over 5 years for my abutting neighbor, Greg Keating, and the same thing, 2 years, 3 years for my other abutting neighbors, the Tisdales. When I'm coming from Merrimack, I'll take McAllister, right through Kennedy Hill, I go straight. When I come back out of the Class 6 road, I abide the signs like any law-abiding citizen would. It says, do not enter, I take a left and then go through Lombok. It's basically splitting the difference 50-50, though I do agree that I should have the right to travel on that Kennedy Hill road. If it's an issue of historical value, then that's something that I'd be glad to take a left and do whatever the town thought was the right way for as far as planning. As far as the people down there, it's been nothing but welcoming. The farm itself, they've all waved, and everybody seems to be on board with everything that's going on there. So far, there hasn't been an issue. The biggest traffic that comes down there is hunters. They're going to be there whether we're there or not. And you know, us putting a house down there is probably going to lessen the traffic, considering I'm still going to go to my land multiple times a day. It's our farm, it's where our family wants to be, and we're going to be there with or without a structure. So that traffic flow is going to be consistent from us, regardless of the decision. As far as the waivers with the fire department and such like that, I mean, I've always been under the impression that I would sign off on the waivers and I would remove the liability from the town. I didn't pick a lot that was a mile in the woods because I was concerned about people being able to come and take care of me. We want to escape and get into the woods. As far as our business has been brought up multiple times. We do have a family business. It's called Northern Sustainability. We install segmental concrete systems, pavers, retaining walls, and 100% of our business has been in Hollis, New Hampshire for the past 4 years, where we have a shop at 43 Main Street in conjunction with another landscaper there and the builder out there. Our business is out from our property. We've been living at 34 Wire Road in Merrimack. It's 3/4 of an acre. My equipment doesn't come back until I'm maintaining our driveway with snow in the wintertime, which I'll need the same equipment to maintain this Class 6 road. There's equipment out there now on our land to continue with the farming. We do intend to keep planting trees as we go. We've planted 4,000 trees. You know, we've crossed every bridge at this point. Like, our main concern is getting out there and starting to live there. We need to move quickly so that we can sell our house and then get to this land, because the double up is crushing me. We've crossed every bridge of even talking to Green Thumb down there, who's already been through the planning board process and allowance of traffic and traffic flow and having a shop front, a storefront down there. We've even talked to them about maybe doing something potentially with them, where we, if you know, we grew trees, maybe we would be able to give it to them and they would sell it and they would deal with the customer flow down at the base of it, and then we wouldn't be encouraging traffic through there. Down at the other end of Mass Road there, it goes through somebody else's backyard. No matter what way you look on Kennedy Hill Road, somebody is going to get affected from someone coming and going. You know, I mean, it's kind of inevitable. The parcels down there, there's my two abutting neighbors. They were with me several meetings, but almost every meeting we haven't been allowed to talk, so they didn't come this time. But the other properties over there is UNH Extension. It's county. I've met with UNH Extension. I had them come down. I had them come and look at our woods to see that it was relatively non-productive, because somebody came in there, gosh, probably when I was still in high school, and clear cut it. So it was basically very, very small oak trees that were left on the space that we cleared, and then replanted with thousands of Christmas trees. Not just Christmas trees, but arborvitaes, everything. The animal, wildlife, everything has been absolutely out of control. The deer coming in, bear coming in, everything has been seemingly going well as far as a nature perspective. We took measures immediately to manage the water flow, make sure that we weren't having any runoff escaping our property. Man, I'm trying to think if there's anything else, but I've been going over this for months now in my head, and I'm not sure if there's anything else anybody else would want me to address or any other questions. But as far as, you know, we're concerned, I mean, like, we're ready to move forward, and we're seriously hoping not to be impeded any further.
Thank you. Board members. The selectmen are asking us for a recommendation to issue a building permit for this gentleman on the Class 6 road.
So, Tim, if I can just
Please.
have the floor for a minute, so. I'm
Well, I'm
certainly-
wondering if we should take this off the table, because this was tabled.
Well, okay, if there's a procedural matter. then-
Well, I'm just bringing it up, that it, remind everybody that this has been tabled, so it needs to be taken off the table at some point.
Phil, you made that motion?
We tabled it?
Yep.
You weren't here.
Yeah.
So Phil, you made the motion to take it off the table?
Yeah, I'll make a motion.
Okay, who's gonna second the motion?
Second.
Motion's been made to take this matter off the table for possible vote. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. All right, now you can move forward, Carlos, please.
Oh,
You forget what you
Lost your arm.
It's gone.
So, yeah, let me just re-gear for just a second, Tim. So, let me just start by saying I'm not anti-agriculture. I mean, Goffstown was an agricultural community back in the 1600s, and it always has been, and I support agricultural uses. It's probably a great spot for an agricultural use. I have planning concerns, though. Having been a manager of a retail Christmas tree plantation for more than 15 years, I can tell you they're in it to make money. And the problem is they make their money in a very small window of time. It's the 4-day Thanksgiving weekend and typically 2 weekends after that. So a lot of people arrive, a lot of people need to be able to access the site, get away from the site, park on the site, move through the site. So there's a lot of issues like that, I think, that need to be taken into consideration from a planning perspective. And these are purely planning issues, but they need to be considered. So I want to throw that out there. There will be access issues, parking issues, and other issues as well. You know, people want to get there, they want to get out there, they want to bring their families, their children, their dogs, they want to get out there, find the perfect tree, cut it down, drag it home, and be done with it. And it all happens in a very narrow window of time, which creates congestion and a lot of issues that could impact the neighborhood, the greater neighborhood. Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, Carlos. Any other board members?
My only question, and I 100% share that concern, but if the question right now is issuance of a building permit for a single-family house, then that's, and I do agree though, and one of my questions would be long-term, that if this is an agricultural use, then regardless of what we do with the building permit, if we recommend it or don't recommend it or whatever the selectmen do, you know, they could have a tree farm and have people coming out to the site. Is there a site plan approval that's required? If it's agricultural, are they exempt from needing an approval from this board? So regardless of getting a building permit, they could theoretically do what they want to do with the trees. So I guess I'm trying to separate the two issues, but I agree. I've got concerns about that, but if we focus just on the single-family house.
Tim, it smacks a little bit of putting the cart before the horse. We ought to really know what the overall plan for the property is, then we can deal with the specific structure that we need to deal with.
Well, then, if you're going to make any type of recommendation to the Board of Selectmen, you have to put some caveats on it, if by what you're saying. If you're gonna recommend that they give them permission to do a single-family home, that's fine. But if you're gonna say that having a Christmas tree farm, which he's already stated he's not going to invite the public at this time, as I remember, then that makes the Board of Selectmen condition their approval on, if you wanna do something else, then you gotta go to the planning board.
Exactly. I don't know if I can speak, but that's exactly what my intentions are now. Now we want to move down and move into our house as a residential. And then I think I expressed that in our emails, that I totally agree that traffic flow and a bunch of residents all at once, particularly on a few weekends, is probably going to create an issue. And at that time, probably 10 years out at the soonest, would be addressed, you know, if that's all right.
All right, Phil?
Well, I have a concern that this went to the ZBA before it came here. And I don't think, once zoning is changed, we can't put a restriction on it. I mean, it is what it is. But I think this is definitely a planning issue. This is, to me, this is premature.
Okay, or other board members? If not, we have to make a decision on what kind of a recommendation or lack of a recommendation to the Board of Selectmen at this time.
I'd just point out to the board that my recollection is traditionally we issue a statement of no comment. We have no comment on the issuance of the class.
That is mostly what we've ever
That
done.
is primarily what we have done, so I'm a little surprised you tabled it, because that's normally what you just do, is no comment. I need to tell you, from my perspective, I need to step back from the ZBA award of the building permit, and I know, and look at this like I would in any other circumstance where I have somebody coming in for a lot to request a building permit in a Class 6 road. And I don't see any access abutting, I don't see any abutters to this lot that have similar development. I don't see access to this lot. I don't see it from a planning perspective as something that I would be inclined to recommend granting a building permit for. This area has been subject of, I think, proposals for for a district at one point, in recognition of all the land that's back up there to be developed that didn't pass, I don't believe. Clearly, there are issues with the use of the road. I live near a Class 6 road. I am familiar with the issues with them. But from a planning perspective, I do not believe it's good planning to start issuing permits for use that has no continuity with the current abutting uses. From a plan, it just doesn't work from a planning perspective. We have too many Class 6 roads in this town to start recommending building permits in the middle of them, in the middle of nowhere.
All right, so,
I'll make a motion not to recommend.
to make no not to
Not to
recommend?
recommend.
Motion not to recommend. Anybody want to second Phil's motion?
I'll second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion on the motion?
Mr. Chair, am I stepping down?
Are all the members here at this point, Joanne? Are all the,
I think so.
okay, so yeah, Dave,
I just want the record
so,
to show it.
yeah, let the
Stepping
record
down.
show that Barbara's voting now.
You can still speak, though.
He can speak.
Yeah, I understand.
Well, he knows
But
that.
for voting, I'm stepping down.
He asked me about voting. Okay, so Barbara's voting, Dave's not. So there's a motion not to recommend. Anyone agrees with that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I
I'm
oppose.
opposed.
I didn't hear what the vote was in the beginning.
Well, there was 3, right? 3 of you said yes?
Yes.
Oh, you said, you also did, Colleen?
To
Yes.
not recommend? I
To
said
not
yes.
recommend.
Voted to not recommend.
Right.
Okay.
So there was 4.
It was 4 to 2 then. And what did you vote?
There-
The numbers don't add
My
up
bad,
yet.
sorry, I vote to not recommend.
So that's 5 not to recommend and 2 against not recommending.
Yeah.
So the motion passes 5 to 2. Okay. So Jonathan, the board is motion to the Board of Selectmen is not to recommend you for a building permit on that lot. And that doesn't mean you won't get it, but that's what the planning board's recommendation is to the Board of Selectmen.
Okay,
Sorry for your delays and thank you for coming in.
thank you.
They never listen to us anyways.
Right. I don't listen.
More of a political statement. Anything else tonight, Joanne? Oh, we gotta go over our
Yeah,
other
we have a
handbook.
couple.
Yeah,
We
we
can
have
push
a
these off.
Handbook,
for
handbook. Okay, we're gonna start with
Even though we
the,
had no business, I knew it was gonna be.
we're gonna start with the red line proposed changes to the planning board procedures. We had our copy from last week that everybody received. And as soon as everybody gets them out, including me, we can get started. That's that one. Okay, where is mine? Can't find one. Not my packet. Well,
I think it was in.
I think it was 2 meetings
Yeah.
ago,
Yeah.
oh, it
actually.
was 2 meetings ago.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'll give it back.
Which ones are we looking for now?
Well,
The planning board.
Procedure.
So Joanne, could you please?
Sure. So I'm just gonna go through the changes.
Just do the red line stuff and we can get it done.
Okay, so the date of adoption hopefully would be tonight rather than the
We'll have to
14th.
share that one.
I'm on page 2 of 8.
If you can read it.
Under Article 3 members, number
I thought we
2,
were gonna get
the
a
RSA should be 673, not 773. The next
Okay.
one down, number 3, currently you have 2 alternates, not 5, so I was
Okay.
just correcting that.
well, can I ask on that one? I saw that and I'm like, why are we changing it? Just because we have to?
You had a vote, but it was never reflected.
Oh, all right, that's what it was, okay. It was a while ago we took that vote, right?
Page 4 is just a punctuation under number 3. After N, there's a comma. And then under number 7, you changed it from a 2/3 vote to a majority. And all of that formatting will be fixed. The next page, page 5, we added Pledge of Allegiance as the second item of business after quorum check.
Okay,
And under
page
letter
6.
D,
Oh.
under old business, continued applications versus application. And then further down on the page, under number 9, Article 9, 2, 673, not 743.
Wow, that's
I think I'm dyslexic. I keep making all these numbered mistakes.
Can we go back to the bottom of page 6?
What are we on?
5 or 6.
We're still on page 5. We just finished page 5.
Okay, sorry, I've got 2 pages. I sort of knew she was just changing numbers and flipping.
So now we're at the top of page 6.
Oh, Article 9, we were
There we
looking
go.
for,
Yeah,
we
yeah.
didn't realize it was Article 9. We were looking
Number
for
9.
number 9.
Oh, sorry, I'll be more specific. Okay, now we're on page 6.
Number 4.
Number 4, under voting.
Yep.
So we're changing it to development regulations versus subdivision and site plan regs. And zoning administrator becomes economic development director under number 4. Under number 5, the same thing. Under number 6, the title changes. So we go to number 8, chair opens the public hearing, and then staff review.
Now, wait a minute. Order of presentation during a public hearing on an application. So when is that, that is normally 5 or 6 down in the...
I'm not sure. I
I
think,
think this is order of presentation.
So
during
this is why I had a
consideration.
bunch of circles and
Yeah.
question marks down here, because we went right to the public
right.
hearing as compared to
Yeah.
accepting the order of review.
Yeah,
I think I penciled in order of review of a noticed application shall occur as follows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The application is, there's a determination made as to whether the application is complete.
yeah.
I mean, that goes in, goes in the face of what we do every week when we
This
have our
got-
staff recommendations.
It's like there was a section dropped
Yeah, that-
somewhere.
Yeah.
that's when we were
You're right.
printing it. I'll have that fixed. But I mean, we could
So
fix it now, then we don't have to
let's
come
let's
back
fix
again.
it right now so we can
Okay.
vote on it, Joanne. Are we gonna go to our packet that we had tonight, and we're gonna insert your recommendations for a normal meeting, which starts with staff report presentation, find application complete, subject to waiver, I don't believe that. Find application complete, I don't know what we're saying, subject to waiver.
I don't know
approved.
that you want to get that detailed. I
Yeah.
think you want to say that the board will make a determination that the application is complete before considering it for review.
All right.
After, staff will present the application, presentation of the staff,
Questions from the board?
questions from the board, public hearing. Then you have this public hearing process that you have detailed, which I had a question about, because the plan, we say we retain the right to ask questions throughout the hearing. And then,
Does number 8 pertain only to the public hearing?
well, that
Joanne?
way
No,
it's
I think-
written now, it
Yeah, it's
does.
not written
Yeah, but
properly.
it should be the application.
Order of
procedure.
consideration of an application.
I think she has to redo, I think you need to see it
Right,
rewritten.
I think so, because
I
this,
don't think we can just
Yeah.
go to it.
um,
And I'm sorry, Joanne, I should have popped you an email, because when I looked at it weeks ago, I said, this is wrong, and then I didn't let you know.
Okay, I'll fix it. All right, so.
Because then you don't have anything about the vote, and then you probably should put a line that says, you know, the order of this review may be revised by a determination of the, as the chair may deem, but have a general process.
The board will follow this process in the consideration of an application for the board.
Yeah, but I'm a lawyer, at the end you
I know
always
you
have
are.
the escape.
That's why you
The
add
chair-
words, that's
the
why you
chair
add words,
may-
I take them away.
So if you're reading,
You can modify
if you're reading that section 8, number 8, A through G, it seems to be a little discombobulated.
Yes,
yeah, I think
I don't know what happened to it.
what it might be, the 8 in black print is the original, Joanne?
Yes.
I think what that meant, because I think technically, every application is a public hearing, but there's a differentiation when you're opening the public portion. But
Yeah.
that's what it might be.
Yeah.
And there's statute that talks about requiring public hearing.
Right, but, and, you know, we have, the general process to be followed will be, I mean, don't tie yourself down, because sometimes we have, you know, it's lot lined, you know, not everything is exactly the same, but this clearly, when I read it, was like, God, I don't even know what we're doing at meetings when I read this.
Joanne, are you saying, I think your wording is correct, I just think we're interpreting it wrong. Letter A under 8 is chair opens the public hearing. I think she's not calling the public hearing when we let the public speak. I think she's saying that this is a
That's
Yeah.
what I meant.
Yeah,
Public
we're saying that
hear-
here's an application.
application.
Yeah.
The whole,
So
the
can you,
whole thing is a
it's
public.
almost,
public
it's
process.
almost right, it's just that I think I was reading it
For
wrong.
an application.
Because it is a public hearing on an
Yeah.
application.
But it's important to point out that, so the public hearing is started, but we haven't accepted it as
Well,
complete
that's in
until we
D on the
accept
next
it as
page.
complete.
The general
Yeah.
public will
public
then be
comment is
provided an
something else.
opportunity
Yes.
for comment with
Yeah.
appropriate responses.
Yeah.
Maybe appropriately, I should open the public comment section and not the public hearing when we
Yes,
do that at a
that's-
meeting from
that's
now on. Because the
exactly.
public hearing is already open
Yeah,
Yeah.
on the application.
Right.
Public
absolutely.
comment is when they get to come up and speak their
Speak.
piece.
Yeah.
So I think we need to change those words to public comment for the future.
Okay.
Even though you didn't say public hearing, you said hear from rebutters and members of the public. So I'm gonna try to remember to call it public comment from now
Yeah.
on.
Okay, so on the next page, under Article 11, it's just all about the titles again. Page 8,
The letters move around.
yeah, but that was just formatting, so that was really it, so it's just that one section.
So fix that one section, we'll vote on it next meeting.
I had comments on this page.
Which page are you on?
8.
8,
8.
8.
Okay, we don't have joint meetings very often, so I don't want to belabor anything on this. But given some of the case law that's come down since this language was drafted, do we need to have any language regarding conflict? Hasn't there been a case law about board members on both boards, or there was something that came down in regards to the ZBA
Yeah,
and the
there-
planning board?
There are those requirements on whatever the name for it is, that like,
Conflict
yeah.
of interest.
It's not conflict of interest, but it is basically that certain, you can't serve in
Serve on
certain
multiple
roles.
boards, yeah.
Yeah, there are certain ones that are specifically
And
identified.
we've had some issues where we have been asked for a joint meeting on something, and as I recall, the last time we were asked, we said no, because we were concerned that a conflict would arise by virtue of the joint meeting. So, I wouldn't, I mean, I'll try to think a little more, but I sort of thought that there needed to be something else in there.
There'd be no potential for conflicts.
Yeah, that
under
there-
RSA, whatever.
Under current
Yeah.
statutory and case law.
All right, anything else, Barbara? I can't believe I'm gonna say this, but I'm gonna say something else here. It's really gonna shock you.
I'm sorry.
Did you agree with it?
No, I got something else to add. It's,
I had a question about who votes first, but we had that the chairman of the planning board determines, and as long as there's no statute on it, I was fine. Okay, sorry, that's it for me.
you just touched on it. I think we should eliminate the word chairman.
Oh, see, I was
Because what
ready to
happens
give it to
when
you.
Kimberly becomes chair? I think we need to eliminate the word chairman in the entire document
We could
and
just
either
say
call it
chair.
the chair or the chairperson.
No, the chair.
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 So everywhere it says chairman, eliminate.
Just like we did with the board of selectmen.
Well, that's kind of what I
Yeah,
was
but
thinking
people
of.
still run for it. But people still run for office calling it the Board of Selectmen, so
Of course they do.
It is a select.
Old habits die hard.
So I don't
signs
want to
don't
be
get
the,
changed.
I don't want to be the chairman.
true.
anymore. I want to be the
You know,
chair.
Manchester
There's
has-
who asked for the change.
Manchester has selectmen,
I
and
think
3/4 of them are women.
Well, they need to change it.
All right, so we're
No,
changing.
they don't want to change it.
We're changing that word throughout the entire document.
I've
Joanne.
asked
Okay, so we'll look forward to the revised copy at our next meeting.
Same
To
thing for
vote.
aldermen.
Then we can start saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
That'd be good.
Okay.
We'll finally get there.
Do you want to
Finally.
do the CIP
Finally.
I
one
want to do
tonight?
CIPs. Kimberly, gonna take my copy away from
I
me.
am gonna take your copy away.
I would like to comment on the large size. I'm even more confused.
Great. All right. Do we have to go through all of these, or did anybody have any comments on them?
All right, let me look.
Well, if you're
I
gonna
forgot.
completely dissect the handbook and make it all yours, I think you need to explain all
Well, okay, so it wasn't all mine personally.
the items?
You went through it very thoroughly. Well, we went through it, and then there was a complaint about that Phil couldn't read it,
It's
so
too
we went
small.
through it again.
No.
Right,
Yes,
so,
yes.
but I do want to point out that this was
Yes,
a
yes.
group effort, and not just me. It was also led by the CIP committee members and the town staff, who did an excellent job of helping it as well. So we were just trying to clarify the policies, the reasons why we do it. So that's what you see on page 3 is what the CIP is and what it is not. The benefits, the blah, blah, blah. So I'm gonna blah, blah, blah a lot of this. So where else have we got red line? Page 6, select board.
These are all done.
Oh, yeah?
Page
No, these are
7
mine.
was just,
This one too?
Well,
Well, the
process.
big one was
I
the
wrote
money. at the
multiple,
bottom.
Right.
I said I wrote multiple copies.
Oh, okay.
all right, you got
I
your
gotcha.
multiple comments over there. So page 7 was the big change. So the change was putting the decision for capital improvement projects as a major, rarely recurring expenditure which cost or commits at least, it was 25,000, we've bumped it up to 50,000. Okay, and
I think
then,
that's too big a number to bump it up to.
well, the 25,000 really is, it's just such a low number, we're capturing really small items.
Well, that's part of the process.
Well,
which-
but is it?
Yeah, it is, because when departments want to make capital purchases, like there's different vehicles or equipment that cost less than 50,000, you're just leaving the door open for them to just go buy stuff without running through the process.
Well,
guess-
let me counter that, because I would say that one of the things that happens is, as you said, for the great example is the vehicles, the police vehicles.
Yeah, they want.
I have sat on this committee for several years now, and I don't see that there's any sort of like, we're buying all the fire trucks we want. Like, it's not, that's not happening. We have a process by which they buy the police cruisers, and then they buy the next police cruiser, and then the next ones, and it's just a process that we have in town, and I don't, I don't know. It
Kim,
just
I
seems-
agree that if one of the overarching goals of the capital improvement plan is to look at the impact on the tax rate, to keep that, then what's the impact of the tax rate of a $25,000 project? Like, I mean, when we look at what the overall
Yeah,
budget
but
is.
when you put
if-
40 of them together, or 50 of them, or 100 of them together,
But-
then it's an impact.
But we don't see that many.
Yeah.
We don't see that many. I would say that
The
looking at this, I disagree with that. I feel like the 50,000 number bumps it up to, let's discuss what we need to discuss, let the little stuff fall out.
Well, the bigger change is that we don't see any fire engines, well, that, maybe fire engines are bad choice, but DPW plow trucks, different big ticket items, we don't see them on the warrant anymore. They're all built into the selectmen's budget now. We used to vote on whether we wanted to buy a plow truck for 200,000. We used to vote on those items. We don't vote on them anymore. We have seceded all that power to the Board of Selectmen to build it into the budget and buy stuff.
Well, but we've
I mean,
also
but
tied
they're-
our
but they
hands.
So why do we have to,
Absolutely.
so why do we have to go through this whole process?
Well, I've had a question about CIP for the last 5 years. Since I chaired it, it has undergone a change, and it is no longer a what do we need, and it is really an exercise in approving department head requests. I mean, I have that issue because we have been, the last few years of the chair have been, this is a planning tool, not a budget issue, so we don't cut anything out of it. That's essentially been what CIP has become. So I guess, Kimberly, my question as to this 2550 is, can you recall offhand, is, other than vehicles, say, and 25,000 is, you know, was there anything that you would have not reviewed had this been 50,000, if you recall? And I had the CIP matrix out before I came in, I forgot to bring it.
Off the top of my head, I remember there was one thing, there was I forget who, I guess police was asking for those speeding signboards or the signboard notices. The ones we have right now are really old and they have to be updated by hand. So they have, in the CIP, and I think there's either one or two and they're $30,000 each. So that's
So that
that's
would fall in.
that's
There are a
the
couple of
only. I mean,
trailers.
everything else I feel like we're talking about like
Well.
paving and roofs and you're right. There's a lot of equipment, but there's also
We also used to see stuff like carpeting in the schools and different things which were small ticket items that fell under the thresholds. They
But-
met the threshold, but
but
now
do we
don't
need to
see
vote
that
on
anymore.
the carpeting in the high school?
Thresholds anymore. Things have increased in price so much.
Yeah.
That's and the schools
No
also
excuse to
bolt
just give
things
it away.
together and.
Like $25,000 wouldn't even buy you a pickup truck. For that matter, $50,000 won't even buy you a pickup truck.
Yeah.
Right, I mean, let's look at
Well,
it.
you can buy a
2000
pickup for
and
less than
yeah.
To Barbara's point, like it is, you're right, it is not a budget tool, it is a planning tool, and it's made to, but I would also say that I think that the department heads take the exercise very seriously. I mean, I don't think that anybody presented anything we moved one thing forward in the matrix, but everything else that they presented is rational. I don't know, I just.
I'm not making any comment about the people. I'm just saying that. the
No, I
process- The process needs.
Or
to
whether
happen.
any of them are rational.
In my experience, that everything that was
I don't
brought
like
forward
this.
was brought forward with justification.
Well,
So
Okay, so we're gonna leave it, we're gonna leave your
I
discussion
propose
on
we leave
50,000.
that on the
50,000.
50,000. And then if you look at page 8,
Can we put with the exception of vehicles? A rolling stock? We call it rolling stock.
that one kind of defeats the whole part of the point. Like,
Well, Trailers cost less, when you buy any kind of trailer for the DPW, that's less than $50,000.
Yes.
All the landscape trailers, if they buy a trailer to haul equipment around on, all that stuff is just, that would just be decided by the board.
But
to
any
purchase it.
vehicle with wheels has to be included, it doesn't matter of the price.
That's a fact?
it does? I don't know.
That's why
That's what I'm,
that's,
because Adam used to bring in, like, he wanted to buy landscape trailers for $7,500 that had to run through CIP
so-
because of the wheeled vehicle clause.
Yeah, so on
I didn't
page
bring
8,
mine.
the original language was that the purchase of or lease of wheeled vehicles, would
That
have been
includes
submitted.
wheelbarrows.
But here,
Oh,
but
we've
here you're
added.
adding the 50,000.
So we've
We
added
amended that one too.
the
okay.
$50,000.
Sorry.
So you're correct, Joanne.
So we have
Previously,
added, right, on page 8.
So
but
that
now-
needs to be negated.
So you disagree with that?
I disagree with the wheeled vehicles item of 50,000 or more because.
so why
of-
don't you change it to 50, but leave the wheeled vehicles there?
Well, they added it to the wheeled vehicle
Yeah.
section as
Well,
well.
I know, and so take out the end of value of 50,000.
So that's what we disagree with,
That's
okay?
what I disagree with because of the
Right,
wheeled
that's
vehicle.
what I
so that way you're still getting wheeled vehicles in, but
Because I also think that it provides, because there have been times when the prices have not been what they've expected and they've moved
yeah.
them around. And it just becomes, The other thing is that you lose access to that information when you're on the Board of Selectmen or you're somebody looking at stuff to know what the vehicle replacement schedule is. And I think to lose that as a piece of public information in the process would be very harmful, because there are times when certain vehicles and things create controversy, and it's better to have it through the process with people justifying it and just put it out there. And, you know, I think to Kimberly's point, it's not a huge amount.
So Kimberly has it inserted into the
Okay.
wheeled vehicles.
So we've decided to strike it on
We
page
haven't
8.
decided, we're talking about doing that. What does the rest of the board want to do with that? Does the board feel that we should leave our wheeled vehicle policy alone and not add that sentence to that?
I believe we should
I believe we should too.
leave it, because I
Collis?
think it's an important tool, as Barbara said, for the board.
We're going to just do a poll around the table here. Who wants to speak next?
What are we talking about now?
So striking the
So
value?
striking that on page 8,
But
Keeping
leaving it on
7.
page 7.
but leaving it on page 7.
I'm just one person, but I'm okay with striking it in both places, but that's just, I can understand the reason for leaving it on page 8, but.
Well, it's true about capital projects. I mean, if you're talking about roofs and boilers and stuff like that, the numbers are big. And I concur with that train line of thought. All right, so we all in agreement that we're going to strike the word "and a value of $50,000 or more" from the wheeled vehicle section on page 8?
Yes.
Okay.
So we can strike that.
Strike that. So then we look at the next item, which is surveys or studies was $10,000. We bumped that to $25,000.
That's fine.
Okay. And then project to address imminent danger or threat as described below, and then we sort of pulled this out. This is already language that was been in there, but we sort of pulled it out to kind of highlight the fact that these are, you know, due to like emergency situations. Again, we put that from 25,000 to 50,000. And then just kind of like pulled out this third paragraph to kind of highlight that. And again, routine and annually recurring expenses, we bumped from 25 to 50,000.
What would you describe as a routine or annually recurring expense? What is a routine or annually recurring expense in the CIPs?
I don't know, and we don't see that much. I can't think off the top of my head because so much of that falls in the normal budgets anyway. Which is one of the reasons why we pushed it so much higher, because it just felt like that just feels like recurring.
Maybe on the school side, are there, I mean, like IT replacement, like, I don't know what they're,
Well, the road plan's
Well,
1.6 million.
We denied computers to the school one year because they didn't have a lifespan of 5 years or more, which was a requirement within the capital improvement documents.
no computers have a lifespan of 5
We-
years nowadays.
That's right.
They're-
6 months,
they're-
6
they're
months.
done-
We told them
yeah.
they
Well,
could
but
not
they've
day
been
bio.
grouping more items together.
But the point is,
yes.
we denied them the ability to put computers into the CIP program because they did not meet the 5-year lifespan requirement.
sense.
And they withdrew them.
Question on page 8.
Yeah.
All right, it took me a minute to figure out why I had this circled. Addressing imminent danger or threat. Second to the last line. Before factoring external funding and fees, the item may be entered into the capital improvement programs. I guess I wanted to know what the logic in the may rather than shall was.
That's one of those Jim Raymond and Barbara words.
Yeah.
Because it leaves this great big gaping wormhole for them to dive in.
I have no idea.
We need to discuss
That's
the word may.
existing language. We could change it to shall. if
Well,
we-
because I guess the whole paragraph is sort of interesting, because essentially what it's saying is you have a imminent threat, you need to raise funds. I mean, the Mother's Day flood, there were a couple of them.
Right.
And if the remaining budget, it may be entered into the capital improvement programs, I guess, why wouldn't it be shall? Because I'm assuming we're talking the subsequent year.
It starts off with shall in the first sentence.
But that has to do any project for the immediate issue. I guess I'm not really sure why this
And would
paragraph
this
is in
default to
here.
emergency fund? That
Yeah.
the,
So I think it's, so
What do
if
you mean
there's,
emergency funds?
Yeah, we don't really have an emergency.
What are you talking
fund.
about? Is there a fund somewhere I don't know
We
about?
don't
So-
really
Yeah,
have
the
an
selectmen have it. They have their.
No,
Well, they have
there's a
reserves, but-
contingency
They have that
fund.
little
Yeah.
fund they can draw out of to buy things.
It seems that
You're not
if,
supposed to know about that.
if this is, if the project is an emergency or imminent threat, then regardless of CIP or not,
Right.
it's gonna be referred to the school board and, or to
Right,
the. and
right,
the-
right.
But then, if that emergency or imminent threat project is going to require funding over multiple years,
Then it should be.
then you're gonna add it to the CIP in the subsequent year.
So we can
seems to
change
be.
may to shall.
So that way it's,
I don't know.
for your immediate threat,
So-
you've gone to the decision makers and then.
So Barbara, what is your
Shall.
recommendation?
Well, it should be shall, but
Yeah.
I guess, I had this, were we making them put it into the current CIP program? I think we meant into subsequent
Yeah, into
CIP
subsequent.
programs.
Well, that's
Right.
what it does, that's what it says. If the project duration exceeds the budget year, the remaining cost or obligation before factoring external funding and fees, the item shall be entered in the capital improvements program.
For the
Yes.
subsequent year.
Doesn't give it a timeline.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually assign a timeline, which
Well,
is.
nobody is expecting them to go in to change. So we have a CIP budget for next year. When all of this happens, we'll have some sort of CIP approved budget for 2024.
Yes.
If there is a flood in May, we're not expecting people to go back into the CIP program to put anything in that one. We're addressing it in the future year when the expense is. We're not redoing the CIP plan that's in existence. We're talking
Correct,
about
right.
subsequent CIP programs.
Right.
So if May is shall, and then afterward, after capital improvement program in the subsequent year.
Right.
You're gonna add what?
And in the subsequent year.
Yeah. Because once we have the program approved, we're not revising it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So I think of like addressing physical damage, like you're gonna need a little bit
Right.
more money, a little bit more time to address that physical
Yeah.
damage, right?
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so, routine annually recurring expenses,
Change it to 50,000.
change to
No
50,000.
problem, I don't think.
Non-recommendation of projects purposes, just says shall be removed from the matrix at the committee's discretion. When we discuss it, and then we let the committee know, shall be mentioned. So if a town head, a chair head comes forward with something and we take it out, we have to mention it. So, not binding, must be resubmitted each year for reconsideration.
Can I, sorry,
Yep.
I got my infamous circle around, first line on page 9. CIP committee may return. All right, again, one of those words I don't like. I guess I don't understand why we have both of these sentences. Or why it's not one. Because aren't you talking about nominated projects or purchases may be removed at the committee's discretion? And then you're sort of, it's like the red part should be the sentence.
You think the red replaces the black?
Well, the language that is not in the second sentences is inconsistent with the objectives. Right, do you see, the
Yeah.
CIP committee may return any project that it determines is sort of redundant as to the red.
Yeah, with the first red sentence.
Yeah.
The second red sentence would stay. Yep.
So how do you want this to read? I'm lost.
So,
So the CIP committee may return any project it determines is inconsistent with the objectives of the CIP or definition of the CIP. Nominated projects or
remove-
purchases may be removed from the summary matrix. You're saying.
I get, what is the
the black
difference, between what are
text.
those two sentences trying to do that's different?
If you, in the first sentence, instead of return, may remove, and then strike the nominated projects may be removed, because you're covering it, unless you're trying to be clear that you're returning it and then also removing it from the matrix.
No, that makes sense. Return actually doesn't make any sense. So
Right,
Yeah.
Right.
may be removed. So the CIP committee,
Do you
may
want to
remove.
rewrite this and bring it back to us so we can, that way you have time to think about how you want to rewrite that? We don't have to adopt this tonight. There's no rush to judgment on these CIPs already.
well, I guess I would say that this isn't I didn't personally write all of this or rewrite all of this, and we've only got a couple more edits, so.
Okay.
unless Barbara has more circles.
No, I'm looking for circles. I
thought these would all be pretty simple
And
changes,
then-
so.
Well, so you gave me a copy I could read. What can I
Right,
do?
there we go, that's what it happened.
Should have stuck with the small copy.
So,
I just thinking, Joanne, who is doing this red line copy and actually printing this out? Derek?
Danielle.
Danielle?
Danielle.
Okay. These two sentences, there is a redundancy in these two sentences that is not clear. It just needs, you need to strike the first part of the first sentence and bring the objectives and definition into the second sentence, or make a new second sentence, because otherwise we have sentences. The may return is what triggered my eye. I said, that doesn't make, what are you gonna do? Hand it back to, what does that mean? All right, so
do you
it's
wanna-
the same thing. The second sentence is fine. The only thing it's missing is that supposedly the committee is going to act consistent with the objectives of the improvement program.
You like the second sentence because it has shall in it.
It
That may
does.
be true.
Meets the standard.
so do you want to go through the rest of these and then we could just bring that one back as a correction for the next meeting?
Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna keep going through it. Okay. So, I don't see any other substantial changes. Select board, CIB committee chair will work with staff to coordinate blah, blah, blah. Outlined in this handbook. SAU, brief description of all major projects. So this one was pretty much the department, so when we're looking at 10 and 11, this was sort of where we changed those forms in order to streamline it. We sort of highlighted what we really want to get information on, and sort of bulleted it so that it was a little more clear. And then it matches the new forms that we've created.
Does that one have the changes?
No, but I'm following along.
No, I have another one here.
So,
That's got the changes in it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm looking at 11 now.
Did you change the titles of the like priorities? One, two?
We shifted priority 1 to from urgent to essential. That was
See,
the only one we
we
changed.
redid them when I was the chair, because we only had like 4, and we added I think we added the urgent one, because I don't know if we even had urgent in those days. And we reviewed other town criteria, and that's what we did. I mean, it's just a word. I don't know what the difference between urgent and essential is.
Well, we also put in the time frame so that each of these has kind of a time frame thought. So,
Well, but I was sort of curious about that, because doesn't that, well, I mean, timeframes are in it, so I'll just leave it at that, but it sort of, does the project,
just a word.
does priority 3 desirable, that gets in there with 4 to 6 years, when it moves up to 2, is it still desirable? Because it's now not in the 4 to 6 years, but that's just me being a jerk with words, which is what I do.
So we're gonna leave the word essential in priority 1, it's fine with me, it's just it's
Okay.
semantics.
Yeah.
It's just a
it's
word.
fine with you, we're gonna move it on. All right, look at page 12.
I think that was a cutting comment.
Just a little formatting. 13, the report. Again, that was just sort of to match the form that we changed. And then this was the changed worksheet. We shifted from page 15 was the old form, 15, 16, 17, and then page 19 is sort of our new improved shortened version of the form.
Okay.
So.
We only have that one
So
little
we're
paragraph.
all
to
going to
work.
agree with all those changes except that one paragraph, we should be good.
So we only have to talk about the one paragraph at a subsequent meeting, not the rest of it.
That's to you, Barbara.
Somebody make note of that.
I promise not to read it.
Okay.
We're gonna
Thanks again to the
we're gonna-
CIP committee for
Let's
their
have a
hard
motion
work.
for reconsideration here. This one? Okay, sorry, Caitlin.
That's okay.
Okay,
We're done then, right?
yep, 2 things I'd like to bring up before we get Phil's motion to adjourn.
I
Jo-
have one thing too.
Okay, Joanne, we want to.
2 things, sorry.
About CIP or something different?
No.
So you want us all to bring our Dearborn Village documents to the next meeting that we have tonight?
No, he's asked continue to the November 16th meeting.
So would you please make sure everyone is informed when to bring them so that we don't show up without our paperwork?
Is he gonna be submitting new revised plans?
Yeah, he will be.
Okay, so we
But
don't,
the application and everything else remains the same.
Yeah.
And last, 2 meetings ago, we made an approval for a condominium project on Route 114. We did not put any findings in that application's condition, final approval. We need to put some findings in there to cover ourselves legally. So if you could produce, bring it to our next meeting, findings, and we can add them to the approval after the fact, so that we prescribe it with the law.
Okay.
And I think we've actually done a couple like that.
Well, we asked Joanne to produce a short list of findings that are sort of generic, that we can plug into applications at the end of a meeting. So we need to remember to have these findings available so we can meet the spirit and intent of the law.
Should we add that to the
Planning board procedure.
The
Don't go
procedures.
there, I knew where you were going. But
Yeah, so like
that
a
was.
menu,
Recently, that
Doug,
was
like a menu we can.
We asked her to give us like a list of 8 or 10 or whatever's
That we can
available,
choose from.
and we can pick from
Right.
an appropriate finding that meets the spirit and intent of the application's approval process.
Make the process quicker.
All right, Joanne?
So, I don't think I've distributed this to the board yet, because an answer hasn't come back. I received a phone call today from New Hampshire DOT, Division 5, who are now reviewing the plans for, what's the name of the project?
Park Place.
Park Place. And,
That's the Route 114 condo project.
right,
Okay, make sure that's clear.
and,
approve with the 10%?
Yeah.
Yeah.
they had many comments about what they received, and I'll just give you a short overview. Number one is they don't like the proposed placement of the rail trail, how it was redirected to come down at a 5% grade, because it comes down at a 5% grade and it's right at the roadway.
It's in there right away too, is the other thing he said to me.
He did.
Yeah,
Okay.
so,
And they're concerned about if younger kids are on bicycles and they come down and they can't stop and they wind up going into Mass Road. He said the other option, which the DOT is saying that that's what needs to be done, is that they go up 3 feet and then they're at a 2% grade and they can easily put it in that direction versus the opposite way.
Kids on a bike will all-
Now, the applicant did not want, if you probably remember during the hearing, they didn't want to do that because they said the buildings that are next to this rail trail, that would be their front doorstep, and they didn't want people
Okay.
close by walking in front of their houses or
So
units.
that really boils down to, it's a DOT decision,
Well-
not a planning
well,
board decision.
but if DOT's requirements are amending what we approved, conditionally approved,
We gotta
and
change.
I'll say, and I don't like to comment on something without an applicant here, but it's gonna be, we were told by the applicant that DOT reviewed this and was good with this. And there was a comment, I said, well, DOT's okay with, the ADA,
Right, it's a new engineer.
and DOT is good with this.
You know,
So the engineers did change.
Okay.
The engineers changed over there.
Okay.
The one that was there that did that is now the Assistant Public Works Director.
But if,
Bedford.
but if I could just finish a couple more things. They definitely will be requiring an easement where that drainage structure is on the Langley property. They said they have to see that easement on the plan.
They,
which we
DOT,
why, because the water flows into their system?
yes.
Okay.
And the drainage pipes, you could explain this better than me, but the pipes themselves are not large enough. He talked about 5 feet, and they actually have 15 feet.
Well, this sounds like a whole bunch of engineering for them to
Yeah,
work out.
really.
Come back,
So-
we don't even need to discuss it.
Well, I just for procedural, Doug has not answered them yet. I just have they talked, Doug and the engineer talked, but the engineer followed it up in writing and there was no response from Doug. So, my question is, we were left, Scott and I were left with 32 conditions to work through, making sure that they met those conditions before the plans were signed. One of those conditions is DOT driveway approval, which what I was told by the phone, I can't even talk, through the phone today, was that they will not be getting DOT driveway approval
Okay.
unless all of this is done. So does the planning board need or want to see these plans once they're revised?
I think we need to send the applicant a letter that you received correspondence from the DOT that disputes the plan as presented and approved by the planning board. And we will
Please
have
address
to be,
them.
and we'll have to be represented with a new plan to correct all the DOT's concerns, at which time the board will vote to accept it or not to accept this new plan.
Yeah,
A
revise the
new
plan
site
and bring it
plan
back to us.
approval rather than a modifying the,
This is a
and I
no
guess
hand
the
second.
semantics on modifying a conditional
Right.
approval versus a new site plan approval.
Yeah, because it's not signed yet.
Yeah.
No, so it's, I don't think you're saying we need a new site plan
Well,
approval?
I-
We need to get the DOT portion worked out to the satisfaction of the DOT if we.
And the site plan has to be revised to reflect those.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, well,
Their
And-
stormwater pond will be severely impacted.
And they're gonna
by
need a
shifting
new
the thing up.
motion and a new review and approval by us. We're not, I don't think that we can, if it's, the plan that's been conditionally approved is now being changed significantly.
You say conditionally approved, it was approved
With
Well, approved with
conditions.
with conditions.
All right, which is.
Barbara, it's your turn.
I agree that the letter needs to go, that we've received notification that DOT does not, at this time, is not going to grant approval, and that the planning board has authorized me to contact you to tell you that the planning board expects to see any revised plans for approval of this plan, and that I would like the planning board to direct that staff stops working with the
Absolutely.
applicant on the other conditions until the DOT issue is resolved.
I concur.
Because if that DOT issue requires a change in site plan, I don't want staff spending another minute on any
Absolutely.
conditions of the plan that we approved.
I agree with
Well, we haven't started anything yet because we haven't received anything
Well, I
from
mean,
them.
that's fine, but I want it clear that
Right.
they're not gonna have you guys working on this plan in any way for those conditions, while DOT.
I think, Dorothy, we need to limit our discussion for the night. I don't think we can discuss anything further than that.
But that's just a letter, and they can come in to discuss it, and that's fine.
There was an email from, there's a whole email chain here, but there was an email from Doug to the DOT saying that the planning board and everyone was okay with the way the plan was.
Doug can say that all he wants. We relied on their statement that the DOT concurred with their design.
Right.
I mean, this just isn't a driveway. This had all sorts of stuff.
Right.
Yep.
And it has a 10% grade.
I was surprised when I received that phone call. And the good thing was, we haven't had a lot of contact since I've worked here with the DOT. And I reached out to them, not even knowing there was a new person. I reached out to them, it happened to be there was a new person that just started. And we went and met with them about the driveway permit in the first place, I don't know, a month or so ago.
They didn't really comment on it much that day.
No, it was almost like they had just received it. So I'm hoping now with this further conversation that it opens the doors for projects that come in, around that size, that we
Let's
do
not
get
let's not
included.
discuss that right now.
Okay, I have one other thing.
No, I don't want to discuss that.
No, I have one other thing.
Okay.
Not for that. Woodland Village, back in, I think it was like 2020, received one of their approvals before it was revised. And they show a sign, like just a directory sign that says Woodland Village. And it was supposed to be placed at where the entranceway comes into Bog Road. And there was supposed to be a divider. This is when Coughlin was doing it. There was supposed to be a divider, and the sign was supposed to be placed in that divider. It was kind of a strange place for it, but
I mean, like a median.
yeah, in the median. So, in the meantime, the plans were updated around 2022, I think. And they called the other day, a sign company called and said, hey, the median is not there, we need a place to put this sign. And they had suggested, you know, as you're driving in on the left-hand side, and they have a little narrow and small drawing. The zoning ordinance says that for project identification signs, they need a conditional use permit. So I was going to ask the board
For a project identification sign?
for a residential
Yeah, but that's not what
project.
we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what it's doing. It just says Woodland Village.
No, I think a project identification sign is the sign that was there, may still be there, when you go in and say, home of Woodland, whatever, and then it has the lot outline and all of that.
That's only when
that's like
they're
a
up for
temporary.
sale. Yeah, that's only temporary signs.
Well, that's what I
That's only,
consider,
the
that's
the
what I
realtors
consider.
use those. So anyway, I talked to Derek and he led me to this section. So I'm asking the board tonight, all they're doing is switching it from one section to the other. If you could find that this has no impact.
Was it on the site plan?
It was shown on the site plan in a different location.
Then that's what they
There
do.
was no conditional use permit because back then, I don't know what happened. This was when Coughlin
I'm
was
so
doing
sick
it.
of do it and beg forgiveness. I say, make them put the sign in where it goes.
Where is the median?
They can't,
median-
there's
Yeah, I
no
was just gonna
median
ask why
there.
they're not putting
Forget
the
the
The median,
sign.
when
What
the
happened to
plans,
the median?
remember when Dakota came and they made modifications to the plans?
They got rid of the
They
median.
got rid of
So then
it.
they got rid of the sign.
So then.
Oh, we
so
had
then there
that
was
down
no
at
sign.
Miller's Landing when our prior member of your position let them have upstairs bedrooms in the condos down there that we didn't know about.
Yeah.
So I'm just
was-
asking.
When
that
did
this-
they remove the median though?
Because
Because
they
it's
put a
on my
window
side,
in.
it's on my
It wasn't on
plan
the prior
set.
plans, they snuck the window in.
I don't have it with me, but the
I remember
final
that.
plans don't show a
I
median.
thought my plan said, maybe I don't have the.
Well, if we
most
voted
recent
to
plan.
accept Dakota's revised plans, then we're at fault for not catching it.
So can they just go ahead and get their sign permit?
Yes.
But did their revised plan not show any sign?
It
No, the
didn't show
revised
any
plan
sign.
got rid of the median.
Yeah.
Well, so then
it
the
got rid of
sign
median, got rid of the
disappeared
sign.
too.
So they don't have any approved plan with a sign.
No. So they showed here that they just want to put it as you pull in, it would be over on the left-hand
So we're
side.
trying to
They
do
already
this a
have this-
non-material
They already
change.
have the signposts in the ground, I saw them.
Well, that's too bad,
the
they
other
didn't
day.
dig them out.
I'm just saying, they were doing
So we're,
the,
we asking, be
Ask
asked
for
if this is a
forgiveness then.
non-material change?
That's what I'm asking.
Board members,
I agree.
non-material change starting with Dave.
Non-material.
Colleen,
I wasn't here for the original approval, so
Okay.
I don't know enough.
Non-material, the area they want to put it in, there's nothing around, it's wooded.
yeah, same thing, I abstain.
I agree, non-material.
shame on us for not catching it, non-material.
Non-material.
Okay, tell them it's a
Yeah,
non-material
updated plans, 'cause
change,
it sounds like
do
I
it,
don't
put the
have
sign up.
updated plans.
Right on.
Motion to adjourn?
I gotta wait for you, Joanne, so.
I'm done.
Anybody else? Okay, Phil.
I'll second it.
Motion to adjourn. Bill, Brian? All those in favor, any discussion of the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion passes. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, GTV, we're done.